Who tells you what to do? It's probably a question that plagues our mind off and on. Growing up, I wasn't the most obedient child at all. In fact, some of my friends here in this parish will probably testify that I am not one of the most cooperative people out there. I tend to be a bit hard-headed and strong-willed when something's on my mind. If I say the sky is black, I'm going to go paint it black. If the grass is blue, I'm going to go paint it blue. I just don't say things just because. I've always been a very strong-willed person. Almost have become a prisoner of a sense in being so strong-willed. I've always fallen into my own prisons, of those things that are mine. You can't take from me. You can't make me waste my time. Thankfully, that at a young age, I came to learn that this life wasn't mine. I couldn't live with that mentality too long. Knowing this has taken me places that I never thought that I would go to. I got to spend a few weeks up in New York with the homeless, serving them with a Franciscan order. I got to go to the other side of the country and serve immigrants with the missionary order. And perhaps one of the things that the Lord has told me to do that has really stuck out to me has been my experience with net missionaries. I was a net missionary along with A.J. Valles, Michael Gonzalez, Ernie Acevedo, Jerome, J.C. Nibarra, and Letty. We've all been missionaries of the same association that they all come out of Minnesota. When I went there, I was kind of going on that. The Lord laid something on my life, so He wanted to take from me. He wanted to take from me my time. Our time is valuable, isn't it? It's our time. Time is money, and all those other great cliches that we like to use all the time. During NET, I was the seasoned youth minister. I had been already in the ministry for about 7 years, serving with House of Faith and other outreaches around San Angelo. I was experienced. I was the oldest member on my NET team. And what was my job? To be the chauffeur and to clean up after mess. Talk about struggle and obedience. You can't take from me from my experiences and you want me to do this? What's wrong with you, God? Do you know who I am? It was the mentality that kind of had being on NET. And on one occasion, I was asked to go drop off some kids. Why? Because I was a chauffeur. That was my job. You were going to take from me the one thing that was my job, that was mine. So I go and I drop these kids off in the cold winter of Minnesota. Now there's two things that Freddy hates in life. It's cold and snow. Don't like it at all, not interested. In fact, that's why I love Texas. I love the heat. I can live in the heat, I like to sweat. I'm a good sweater. For those of you who know me, there is one thing that I do right, and it is sweat. I know how to sweat. Going to drop off these kids in the cold Minnesota winter, I drive up and I tell these kids, hey, I'm going to pay with my credit card, so don't take off, it will just be quick. Truth is, I should have done it earlier, but I didn't. Why? Because I didn't want to. And as I put it in park, I didn't even click it in park when the kids had already shut out the car and went to go buy stuff from the convenience store. Okay, great, I loaded up the car with gas and they all came back inside. And as they're coming back inside, I'm driving them to their houses, and I just hear them start fighting in the back of the car. Give me a piece. No. Give me a piece. No, it's mine. I bought it. Give me a piece. No. And I was like, oh gosh, I know what's coming next. Freddy, tell him to give me a piece. So me being a holy person with great wisdom, I tell him the one thing that I knew was right. What would Jesus do? Kind of one of those foot and mouth scenarios. Because the kid responded to me, he would take it from the boy. So I'm driving in the snow. He's like, yeah, you're right, he would. And it reminds me of today's gospel. Because in fact, the kid was referencing today's gospel. In the gospel, we hear about the apostle saying, there's a kid here who has 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And then the next sentence is, and Jesus was giving it out. You didn't hear anything about Jesus giving some pious statement to the kid and saying, hey boy, can we have those fish and those loaves? You know, you don't hear him saying to the kid, hey kid, God's kingdom is great and we should all share. Can we share? No. You just hear the apostles bring up to Jesus, and the next scene we have is Jesus giving it up. Jesus did not ask this kid for the loaves or for the fish. He just took and gave it away. Can you imagine this kid? He was probably on his way back from the market. He had probably been sent to buy the loaves and the fishes. And then he saw this multitude of people gathered, hearing this so-called teacher. And what happens? The kid gets jacked. They took the loaves and the fishes that his mother probably asked him to go buy. They took the kid's food. Have you ever taken food from a kid or a baby? I have. That's another story. Needless to say, this story kind of plagued my mind throughout the remainder of my missionary experience. It kind of stayed with me. He took the fish. Why would he do that? I mean, God. He was like, you get here. And I came back from that, needless to say. As I'm coming back from that, Father David asked me, how's your experience? I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cry. I wanted to shake him because he didn't warn me about the experience of being a missionary. He didn't warn me about the time that I would have to be obedient to somebody else and to listen to somebody else's wantings and desires. You know, he didn't warn me about how Freddy would have to put his pride down in order to hear somebody else. You know, he didn't warn me about the time that even though I had the best idea ever, I would have to put it around for some unexperienced kid who would have to follow as leader. He didn't warn me about any of that. So needless to say, it kind of saw my attitude. He was like, you know what, we can talk later. I was hidden. So time went on, you know, as I'm coming back, trying to adjust myself, trying to say, why will the Lord take 9 months out of my life to go to Minnesota in the cold, to do virtually what I could have done here? You know, what was the purpose of it? Why would the Lord do this? You know, why would He take from me? Does He know who I am? It was the mentality that I had. Father David thought that it was best for me to set up a retreat with Father Fabian out in the Hermitage. So if you're getting in a position where you don't know what to do, be careful, because Father David will send you Father Fabian. He sends me out there and we have a silent retreat. So I'm getting ready for the silent retreat. I wanted something to keep me focused. Because as we can tell, Freddy tends to be, I hate talking about their first person. I tend to be a little ADD. You know, I tend to just go all over the place if I don't have something to just really zone in, contemplate, take it all in for the experience. And plus, it was going to be a weekend in the silence with the hermits out in Cristobal. I don't know how awesome and exciting that is, but if you think that's awesome and exciting, there's something wrong with you. It's holy and pious, don't get me wrong. Everybody should go spend a weekend with the hermits and just be quiet for a while. It doesn't work for you. But going out there and getting ready for it, I wanted something to reflect on. So I found a little pamphlet, probably sized book. The book, ironically, was called 5 Loaves, 2 Fishes. For obvious reasons, I picked it up. I said, this is it. Took it home with me. I was reading information about the author. The author was Cardinal Francis Xavier. He was a bishop of Vietnam during the communist oppression. He had been sent to jail for pretty much just being a bishop, for being Catholic. He had been locked away. He had been oppressed. I was going to find out that he gave retreats to Pope John Paul II. So hey, I figured if it was good enough for the Pope, it's good enough for me.